Arrival at the Academy. Commander Jareth adjusted his visor as the diplomatic shuttle pierced through Earth's atmosphere, the vibrant blues and greens of the planet sprawling beneath him. The metallic taste of oxygen filtered through his environmental suit, a sensation he found both primitive and unsettling. His antennae twitched irritably, reflecting his growing impatience. "Lieutenant Mira," he called out, not bothering to turn his gaze from the viewport. "Remind me again why we are here." "The Federation Council insists on evaluating these humans for military inclusion, but I fail to see their merit." Mira, his aide, tapped her data pad with precision. "Sir, preliminary reports indicate they possess remarkable tactical adaptability and creative problem-solving abilities," she replied, her tone steady despite the absurdity of her words. "Creative problem-solving?" Jareth scoffed, his exoskeleton shifting colors in disbelief. "These are the same beings who have only recently stopped throwing sharpened metal objects at each other. Their history is littered with chaos." The shuttle banked sharply as it approached the United Earth Military Academy, revealing its sprawling campus below. The architecture was jarring, angular structures that lacked the elegance found in civilized species. Jareth's compound eyes narrowed at the sight. It was everything he expected from a backwater world. "Entering final approach," the pilot announced, their voice carefully neutral. Jareth leaned forward, his four eyes focusing on what appeared to be a landing pad suspended over a pool of steaming mud. "They expect us to land there," he demanded, indignation coloring his voice. Mira coughed discreetly before replying, "The briefing mentioned this is their auxiliary landing pad, sir. The main one is currently occupied by something called extreme hoverjet yoga." "Extreme what?" Jareth's translator struggled with the concept as he processed her words. "It's a training exercise," Mira explained helpfully, though her mandibles quivered with barely concealed amusement. "Barbaric," he muttered under his breath as they descended further into this chaotic world. As the shuttle touched down with surprising precision despite the thermal updrafts swirling around them, Jareth's attention was drawn to a small welcoming party approaching. He instinctively adjusted his ceremonial garb, preparing for what he assumed would be an awkward introduction to these primitive beings. Colonel Alara Steele stepped forward first, her combat boots crunching against the gravelly surface of the landing pad. Her uniform gleamed with an impressive array of medals that she wore like trophies from battles fought in distant lands. Her face bore scars that told stories of survival and resilience, an unsettling reminder of humanity's violent past. "Welcome to Earth's United Military Academy," Colonel Steele announced with a voice that carried authority. "I trust your landing was entertaining?" Jareth's antennae twitched in irritation at her casual tone but chose to remain composed. "The landing facilities are certainly unique," he replied curtly. "Please call me Alara," she said with a smirk that suggested familiarity rather than formality. Before he could respond, a young human female stepped forward, Cadet Lila Hart, her uniform crisp and her demeanor exuding confidence. "Sir, I'll be your guide for today's tour," she declared enthusiastically. Jareth raised an eyebrow at her eagerness. "A cadet? Surely an inspection of this importance warrants a more seasoned guide." Lila's smile didn't falter as she replied cheerfully, "Oh, don't worry. I just led last week's survival exercise in the Himalayan death zone. Only lost 2 students this time." Jareth's scales rippled with indignation as he processed her words. "Lost? Of course we found them having tea with some local Yeti population." Lila continued nonchalantly. Myra's data pad began beeping frantically as she struggled to document this information. "Excuse me, Cadet Hart," she interjected nervously, "but my xenobiology database has no record of these Yeti beings." Colonel Steele cut in smoothly before Lila could respond further. "Just like last month's incident with the quantum bagels in the cafeteria." Jareth felt a wave of confusion wash over him as he tried to comprehend how such chaos could exist within a military institution designed for discipline and order. "Shall we begin?" Colonel Steele suggested with an air of amusement that made Jareth uneasy. As they moved toward what appeared to be a basic training ground for first-year cadets, Jareth's confidence began to wane. High above them, human cadets were hurling themselves out of aircraft with reckless abandon, screams of joy echoing across the grounds as they plummeted towards Earth at terminal velocity. Are they being punished? Mira asked incredulously. No, Colonel Steele chuckled in response. This is Recreation Tuesday Morning Skydiving Club. Helps them wake up before classes. Jareth felt his secondary heart skip a beat at this revelation. It was all too absurd for comprehension. He turned to Mira, who looked equally horrified by what they were witnessing. This is your military training? Jareth asked incredulously. Oh yes. Lila chimed in cheerfully while watching another cadet leap from an aircraft above them. It's great fun. As they continued their tour through this strange new world filled with reckless enthusiasm and bizarre traditions, Commander Jareth could only wonder how such beings could ever be considered for inclusion in the Federation Council, a question that would haunt him throughout their visit to this chaotic academy on Earth. The Welcome Committee. As Commander Jareth and his entourage stepped off the shuttle, the heat from the Earth's atmosphere enveloped them. The steam rising from the ground mingled with the scent of damp earth, a stark contrast to the sterile environments of his home planet. Jareth's scales shimmered with a mix of irritation and curiosity as he took in the scene before him. Colonel Alara Steele stood at the forefront of the welcoming committee, her posture exuding confidence. Welcome to Earth's United Military Academy, Commander Jareth, she said, her voice steady and commanding. I trust your landing was entertaining? Entertaining is one way to put it, Jareth replied, his tone clipped as he scanned the surroundings. I would call it reckless. Alara chuckled lightly, a sound that seemed almost foreign to Jareth's ears. You'll find that our methods are unconventional but effective. We believe in pushing boundaries. Boundaries? Jareth echoed, his antennae twitching in skepticism. It appears you have none. Before Alara could respond, Cadet Lila Hart stepped forward with a bright smile that seemed almost too wide for her face. Sir. I'll be your guide for today's tour, she announced enthusiastically, her eyes sparkling with excitement. A cadet? Jareth questioned, raising an eyebrow. Surely an inspection of this importance warrants a more seasoned guide. Oh, don't worry. Lila replied with unshaken confidence. I just led last week's survival exercise in the Himalayan death zone. Only lost 2 students this time. She paused for dramatic effect. Of course, we found them having tea with some local Yeti population. Jareth's mandibles clicked together in disbelief as he turned to Mira, who was frantically typing notes into her data pad. What is this Yeti she speaks of? Unknown species, Mira murmured, her brow furrowed in concentration. I'll need to update our xenobiology database after this visit. Colonel Steele interjected smoothly, just like the incident with the quantum bagels in the cafeteria last month. Her tone suggested familiarity with chaos that left Jareth feeling uneasy. Shall we begin? Lila asked brightly, leading them toward what appeared to be a vast training ground. As they walked, Jareth observed the humans around him. Some were engaged in various exercises while others lounged about as if they had all the time in the world. The relaxed atmosphere clashed sharply with his expectations of military discipline. Here we are. Lila announced as they reached an open field where cadets were practicing skydiving. High above them, several young humans were leaping from aircrafts without any apparent fear or hesitation. Are they being punished? Jareth asked incredulously as he watched them plummet toward Earth. No. Alara laughed heartily. This is Recreation Tuesday Morning Skydiving Club. It helps them wake up before classes. Wake up? Jareth echoed, his voice rising slightly in disbelief. You mean they are not even fully conscious while performing these death-defying acts? Lila shrugged nonchalantly. Well, the coffee hasn't usually kicked in yet. But don't worry, we've only had one incident where someone sleep jumped. She grinned widely. Turned out even better than their awake jumps. Myra's data pad began beeping frantically as she struggled to process this information. Sir, she whispered urgently to Jareth, their casualty rates must be astronomical. Oh no, Colonel Steele interjected again, her tone almost dismissive. We haven't lost anyone permanently. Though we did have an interesting situation last month when Cadet Johnson accidentally achieved temporal displacement during a particularly enthusiastic dive. Jareth felt his secondary heart race at this revelation. Temporal displacement? Yes. Lila chimed in excitedly. He popped up 3 days later with some fascinating insights about dinosaurs. The commander shook his head in disbelief as they moved on to another area where cadets were engaged in what appeared to be hand-to-hand combat training. A group of young humans was practicing improvised weapons techniques using common household items, spoons and forks. Is that a spoon? Jareth asked incredulously. Oh yes, Elara replied with a smirk. You'd be amazed what a motivated human can do with eating utensils. We had to ban forks from advanced classes after the spaghetti incident of 2024. Jareth felt his scales pale at the mention of such an incident but remained silent as they continued through the training grounds. They approached an obstacle course designed by someone who seemed to have a serious grudge against safety regulations. Cadets crawled under electrified wires and swung over pits filled with questionable substances. Is that live ammunition? Jareth whispered, horrified. Of course not. Colonel Steele replied, sounding almost offended by the suggestion. Those are just training rounds. The live ammunition range is on the other side of campus. Jareth's mind reeled as he tried to comprehend this chaotic environment where danger seemed to be part of everyday training. A cadet emerged from a mud pit covered in goo but grinning widely nonetheless. Permission to report, sir, she called out cheerfully. What is that? Jareth asked, pointing at the sludge. The new bioengineered obstacles. Lila explained enthusiastically. It's showing excellent adaptive properties. It nearly caught Johnson this time. Excellent work, Colonel Steele nodded approvingly before turning back to Jareth and Mira. As they moved on to another section of the academy, Jareth felt a growing sense of dread about what lay ahead. He had expected discipline and order but was met instead with chaos and unpredictability, a stark reminder that humanity was unlike any species he had encountered before. Shall we proceed? Lila suggested brightly as they approached another training area filled with cadets sprinting through what appeared to be disappearing ground beneath their feet. What kind of training is this? Jareth asked incredulously. Oh, that's just quantum uncertainty training, Elara explained casually. It helps them understand that reality is more of a suggestion than a rule. Jareth's mind raced at this concept. It was unlike anything he had ever heard before. In his experience, reality was absolute, there were rules and consequences for breaking them. As they continued through various training exercises filled with bizarre techniques and reckless abandon, Commander Jareth began to question whether humanity truly belonged among the stars or if their chaotic nature would ultimately lead to their downfall. With every new demonstration of their unconventional methods, he felt more and more out of place, an alien leader trapped within a world that defied all logic and reason he had come to know. The training grounds. The atmosphere in the United Earth Military Academy was charged with an energy that Commander Jareth found both exhilarating and terrifying. The cacophony of laughter, shouts, and the occasional explosion echoed through the training grounds as they moved deeper into the heart of human military culture. Jareth's compound eyes darted around, taking in the chaotic scene before him, a world where danger seemed to be a daily occurrence. Welcome to our basic training grounds. Cadet Lila Hart exclaimed, her enthusiasm palpable as she gestured toward a massive open field. This is where we prepare our first-year cadets for the challenges ahead. Jareth's heart sank as he observed a group of cadets hurling themselves from aircraft, their bodies free-falling toward the ground with reckless abandon. Are they being punished? He asked incredulously, his voice barely above a whisper. Punished? Colonel Alara Steele chuckled, her laughter resonating like distant thunder. No, this is just recreation Tuesday morning skydiving club. It helps them wake up before classes. Wake up? Jareth echoed, his antennae twitching in disbelief. You mean they're not even fully conscious while performing these death-defying acts? Lila shrugged nonchalantly. Well, the coffee hasn't usually kicked in yet. But don't worry, we've only had one incident where someone sleep-jumped. Turned out even better than their awake jumps. Actually, we're still studying that data. Myra's data pad beeped frantically as she attempted to document everything. Sir, she whispered urgently to Jareth, their casualty rates must be astronomical. Oh no, Colonel Steele interjected, her tone dismissive. We haven't lost anyone permanently. Though we did have an interesting situation last month when Cadet Johnson accidentally achieved temporal displacement during a particularly enthusiastic dive. He popped up 3 days later with some fascinating insights about dinosaurs. Jareth felt his secondary heart race at this revelation. Temporal displacement? It was absurd enough that humans willingly engaged in such reckless behavior without the added complication of time travel. As they continued their tour, they approached another area where cadets were engaged in hand-to-hand combat training. The sight was both alarming and oddly fascinating. Pairs of young humans sparred with one another, practicing improvised weapons techniques using common household items like spoons and forks. Is that a spoon? Jareth asked incredulously. Oh yes, Lila replied cheerfully. You'd be amazed what a motivated human can do with eating utensils. We had to ban forks from advanced classes after the spaghetti incident of 2024. Jareth felt his scales pale at the mention of such an incident but remained silent as they moved on to what appeared to be an obstacle course designed by someone with a serious grudge against safety regulations. Cadets crawled under electrified wires and swung over pits filled with questionable substances. Is that live ammunition? Jareth whispered, horrified. Of course not. Colonel Steele replied, sounding almost offended by the suggestion. Those are just training rounds. The live ammunition range is on the other side of campus. Jareth's mind reeled at this revelation, it was all too absurd for comprehension. How could anyone consider this environment suitable for training? As they continued through various training exercises filled with bizarre techniques and reckless abandon, Jareth felt a growing sense of dread about what lay ahead. He had expected discipline and order but was met instead with chaos and unpredictability, a stark reminder that humanity was unlike any species he had encountered before. They approached a group of cadets navigating an intricate maze filled with electrified wires and swinging pendulums. This is our environmental awareness training, Lila explained proudly. It teaches them to adapt quickly to changing conditions. Jareth watched in horror as one cadet miscalculated a jump and landed squarely in a mud pit filled with some sort of bioluminescent sludge. The cadet emerged covered in goo but grinning widely nonetheless. Permission to report, sir, he called out cheerfully. What is that? Jareth asked incredulously. The new bioengineered obstacles. Lila explained enthusiastically. It's showing excellent adaptive properties. It nearly caught Johnson this time. Feed it? Mira echoed, her voice rising slightly in disbelief. Well, we can't let it go hungry, Lila said matter-of-factly. That would be inhumane. As they moved on to another section of the academy, Jareth felt increasingly out of place, an alien leader trapped within a world that defied all logic and reason he had come to know. They arrived at what appeared to be a running track, however, it quickly became apparent that it was anything but ordinary. The ground began randomly disappearing beneath the feet of the cadets, forcing them to leap and roll as if defying gravity itself. Quantum uncertainty training, Colonel Steele explained casually as if it were the most natural thing in the world. It helps them understand that reality is more of a suggestion than a rule. Jareth's mind raced at this concept. It was unlike anything he had ever heard before. In his experience, reality was absolute. There were rules and consequences for breaking them. A cadet sprinted past them pursued by what appeared to be a small localized thunderstorm. "Don't mind Thompson," Lila called out casually. "He's working on his weather evasion techniques, been trying to outrun that storm all week." "This is basic training?" Jareth managed to ask incredulously. "Oh yes." Colonel Steele smiled knowingly. "Just warm-up exercises really. Wait until you see what we do for actual physical conditioning." In the distance, something exploded in a rainbow of colors followed by what sounded suspiciously like maniacal laughter. Neither Colonel Steele nor Lila seemed fazed by it. Instead, they continued onward as if explosions were merely part of their daily routine. "Should we move on to the next area?" Lila suggested brightly as they left behind the basic training grounds. "Yes," Jareth replied numbly even as every survival instinct he possessed screamed at him to run back to the shuttle. But he couldn't leave, not yet. He had a duty to complete this inspection. As they approached what looked like a standard gymnasium, Jareth steeled himself for whatever madness awaited them inside. About 20 cadets gathered around an instructor who held a spoon, a regular cafeteria spoon, and began demonstrating what appeared to be impossible moves with it. "This is just the basic spoon disarmament sequence," the instructor explained confidently while executing movements so fast they seemed to break several laws of physics. "We'll cover advanced soup delivery systems next week." Jareth watched in mounting horror as one cadet successfully disarmed a training bot 3 times their size using nothing but a soup spoon while reciting ancient war poetry. "Oh, that's nothing," Lila said cheerfully as she clapped her hands together excitedly. "Wait until they start on advanced plasticware techniques. We had to rebuild the cafeteria after last semester's fork finals." As Jareth stood there watching this chaotic display unfold before him, an alien leader witnessing humanity's bizarre approach to military training, he began questioning everything he thought he knew about these beings and their potential place within the Federation Council. With each passing moment spent in this absurd environment filled with reckless enthusiasm and bizarre traditions, Commander Jareth found himself grappling with an unexpected realization: perhaps there was more to humanity than met the eye. A resilience hidden beneath layers of chaos that might just prove invaluable when faced with greater threats beyond their world. But for now, all he could do was brace himself for whatever madness awaited him next within this unpredictable military academy on Earth, a journey into the depths of human creativity and adaptability that would challenge everything he thought he understood about these peculiar beings who called themselves human. Unexpected challenges. As Commander Jareth and his entourage stepped into the gymnasium, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The air was thick with anticipation, and the sound of cadets chatting animatedly filled the space. Jareth's compound eyes adjusted to the bright lighting, revealing a scene that was both bewildering and alarming. In the center of the room, a group of cadets gathered around an instructor who held a seemingly innocuous cafeteria spoon. "Now remember," the instructor said with a confident smile, "this is just the basic spoon disarmament sequence. We'll cover advanced soup delivery systems next week." Jareth felt his mandibles twitch in disbelief as he watched the instructor demonstrate movements that defied logic. The spoon became an extension of the instructor's arm, twirling and spinning in a way that seemed almost supernatural. "This is disarmament technique number 3, she explained, executing a series of rapid motions that left Jareth questioning the very laws of physics. "Is this really necessary?" Jareth asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're teaching them to fight with spoons?" "Oh yes." Cadet Lila Hart replied cheerfully, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. You'd be amazed at what motivated humans can do with eating utensils. We had to ban forks from advanced classes after the spaghetti incident of 2024. Jareth's scales rippled with disbelief as he tried to process this absurdity. The thought of using cutlery as weapons was beyond comprehension for him. And you expect this to prepare them for actual combat? He questioned, his voice tinged with skepticism. Absolutely. Colonel Alara Steele interjected, her tone unwavering. It's all about creativity and adaptability in combat situations. You never know when you might find yourself in a tight spot without your standard equipment. Before Jareth could respond, one of the cadets, a tall young man, demonstrated an impressive disarmament move against a training bot 3 times his size using nothing but the spoon. The bot fell to the ground in a heap of metal and circuits while the cadet grinned triumphantly. See? Lila exclaimed, clapping her hands together. That's what we call effective training. Jareth's secondary heart raced as he struggled to reconcile this bizarre display with any form of military discipline he understood. What happens if they fail? He asked cautiously. Oh, they don't fail, Lila replied nonchalantly. They just learn through experience. And if something goes wrong, we have medical teams on standby. Medical teams? Jareth echoed incredulously. Yes. Just in case someone accidentally stabs themselves with their own spoon, she said with a laugh. Colonel Steele nodded approvingly as she observed Jareth's reaction. We believe in hands-on learning here at the Academy. It builds resilience and prepares them for unpredictable situations. As if on cue, an explosion erupted outside the gymnasium, sending a shockwave through the building. The cadets didn't flinch, instead, they cheered and clapped as if it were part of their routine. What was that? Jareth demanded, his antennae twitching nervously. Oh, just our demolitions class getting started, Colonel Steele replied casually. Nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about? Jareth repeated incredulously. That sounded like a significant detonation. Just part of their introduction to creative problem-solving, Lila explained brightly. Jareth felt his head spin as he tried to grasp this chaotic training philosophy. And how often do these creative problem-solving sessions result in injuries? Rarely. Colonel Steele assured him with a grin that bordered on manic enthusiasm. Feeling overwhelmed by this whirlwind of chaos, Jareth took a deep breath and steeled himself for whatever lay ahead. He had come here to evaluate humanity's potential for Federation membership, but this experience was testing his resolve in ways he had never anticipated. Shall we move on? Lila suggested brightly as they left behind the gymnasium filled with spoon-wielding cadets. Yes, Jareth replied numbly, every survival instinct within him screaming to retreat back to his shuttle. But he couldn't leave, not yet, he had a duty to complete this inspection tour. As they exited the gymnasium, they encountered another group of cadets preparing for what appeared to be an obstacle course designed by someone with little regard for safety regulations. Cadets crawled under electrified wires while swinging over pits filled with questionable substances. Is that live ammunition? Jareth whispered horrified. Of course not. Colonel Steele replied, sounding almost offended by the suggestion. Those are just training rounds. The live ammunition range is on the other side of campus. Jareth felt his mind racing as they approached the obstacle course where cadets navigated through various challenges designed to test their limits and adaptability. One cadet emerged from a mud pit covered in goo but grinning widely nonetheless. Permission to report, sir, she called out cheerfully despite her appearance. What is that? Jareth asked incredulously. The new bioengineered obstacles. Lila explained enthusiastically. It's showing excellent adaptive properties. It nearly caught Johnson this time. Feed it? Mira echoed nervously as she glanced at her data pad filled with alarming notes about their training methods. Well, we can't let it go hungry, Lila said matter-of-factly, as if discussing feeding a pet rather than a dangerous bioweapon. As they continued through various training exercises filled with bizarre techniques and reckless abandon, Jareth felt increasingly out of place, an alien leader trapped within a world that defied all logic and reason he had come to know. They approached what appeared to be a simple running track. However, it quickly became apparent that it was anything but ordinary. The ground began randomly disappearing beneath the feet of cadets, forcing them to leap and roll as if defying gravity itself. Quantum uncertainty training, Colonel Steele explained casually, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. It helps them understand that reality is more of a suggestion than a rule. Jareth's mind reeled at this concept. It was unlike anything he had ever heard before. In his experience, reality was absolute. There were rules and consequences for breaking them. A cadet sprinted past them, pursued by what appeared to be a small localized thunderstorm. "Don't mind Thompson," Lila called out casually. "He's working on his weather evasion techniques, been trying to outrun that storm all week." "This is basic training?" Jareth managed to ask incredulously. "Oh yes." Colonel Steele smiled knowingly. "Just warm-up exercises really. Wait until you see what we do for actual physical conditioning." In the distance, something exploded in a rainbow of colors, followed by what sounded suspiciously like maniacal laughter. Neither Colonel Steele nor Lila seemed fazed by it. Instead, they continued onward as if explosions were merely part of their daily routine. As they moved deeper into this chaotic environment filled with reckless enthusiasm and bizarre traditions, Commander Jareth found himself grappling with an unexpected realization. Perhaps there was more to humanity than met the eye, a resilience hidden beneath layers of chaos that might just prove invaluable when faced with greater threats beyond their world. Reflections on Humanity. As Commander Jareth and his entourage left the gymnasium, the echoes of laughter and the sounds of chaos still resonated in his mind. He felt a mixture of disbelief and intrigue as they ventured deeper into the United Earth Military Academy. The absurdity of what he had witnessed so far was overwhelming, yet there was something undeniably captivating about the humans' resilience and creativity. "Shall we proceed to the next area?" Cadet Lila Hart suggested, her enthusiasm undiminished despite the bizarre training methods they had just observed. "Yes," Jareth replied, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of thoughts racing through his mind. He had come to evaluate humanity's potential for Federation membership, but this experience was challenging everything he thought he knew about these beings. As they walked, Jareth couldn't help but reflect on the nature of humanity. Their reckless abandon in training, their willingness to embrace danger, and their ability to find joy in chaos were all foreign concepts to him. In his own culture, discipline and order were paramount, every action was calculated and precise. Yet here, amidst the madness, he sensed a raw energy that spoke to something deeper within them. "Commander," Mira whispered as she walked beside him, her data pad still buzzing with alarming notifications. "I believe their training methods may be slightly more intense than we anticipated." "Intense is an understatement," Jareth replied dryly. "But there's something intriguing about their approach. It's as if they thrive on unpredictability. Perhaps that's why they've survived so long despite their chaotic history," Mira suggested thoughtfully. "Their adaptability could be a valuable asset in times of crisis." Jareth nodded slowly, considering her words. He had always viewed humanity through a lens of skepticism, focusing on their past conflicts and failures. But now, witnessing their spirit firsthand, he began to see a different side, a resilience that could potentially benefit the Federation. As they approached another training area, Jareth's thoughts were interrupted by a loud explosion that shook the ground beneath them. The cadets around them erupted into cheers, seemingly unfazed by the chaos. "Is that normal?" Jareth asked incredulously. "Oh yes." Colonel Steele replied with a grin. "That's just part of our demolitions class. They're about to start their introduction to creative problem-solving sessions." "Creative problem-solving?" Jareth echoed, his antennae twitching with concern. Absolutely. Lila chimed in enthusiastically. We believe that sometimes you have to think outside the box, like using explosives to clear obstacles. Jareth felt a mixture of admiration and apprehension at their approach. While he understood the importance of adaptability in combat scenarios, he couldn't shake the feeling that this level of recklessness could lead to disaster. As they entered the demolitions area, Jareth watched as cadets set up various explosive devices with an ease that left him both impressed and horrified. They moved with precision and confidence, clearly accustomed to handling dangerous materials. Remember, one instructor shouted over the noise, safety first. Always check your surroundings before detonation. Jareth couldn't help but admire their focus amidst the chaos. These humans were not just reckless, they were calculated in their madness, a skill that could prove invaluable in high-stakes situations. Shall we observe a demonstration? Colonel Steele suggested, her eyes glinting with excitement. Yes, Jareth replied cautiously, bracing himself for whatever spectacle awaited them. The instructor began explaining the principles behind each explosive device while cadets prepared for a live demonstration. Jareth listened intently as they discussed concepts like blast radius and collateral damage, topics he had never thought would be part of military training on Earth. As one cadet activated a series of charges, Jareth felt his heart race. The ground shook violently as explosions erupted in a series of colorful bursts, each one followed by roars of laughter from the cadets who reveled in the spectacle. That was impressive, Jareth admitted reluctantly as he watched debris rain down harmlessly around them. Thank you. Lila beamed with pride. We take great care in our training. It's all about learning how to control chaos. Jareth considered her words carefully. Perhaps there was wisdom in this chaotic approach, a way to embrace uncertainty rather than fear it. He had always been taught that control was essential for survival, yet here were these humans thriving amidst unpredictability. After the demonstration concluded, Colonel Steele turned to Jareth with an expectant expression. What do you think? Could you see humanity contributing to the Federation? Jareth hesitated for a moment before speaking. I must admit, I have been skeptical about your species' potential for cooperation within our ranks. He paused, searching for the right words. However, witnessing your adaptability and resilience firsthand has given me pause. Lila's eyes sparkled with excitement at his admission. So you believe we could be valuable allies? Yes, Jareth replied slowly. But it will require significant adjustments on both sides. The cadets around them cheered once more as another explosion lit up the sky, a reminder that chaos was not merely an obstacle but an opportunity for growth and learning. As they continued their tour through the academy, Commander Jareth found himself grappling with an unexpected realization: perhaps humanity's chaotic nature was not a flaw but rather a unique strength, a quality that could prove invaluable when faced with greater threats beyond their world. In this moment of reflection amidst explosions and laughter, Jareth began to understand that embracing unpredictability could lead to new possibilities, an important lesson he would carry back to the Federation Council when evaluating humanity's place among the stars. As they moved on from the demolitions area toward yet another training ground filled with strange contraptions and enthusiastic cadets ready for whatever madness awaited them next, Commander Jareth felt a sense of anticipation building within him, a curiosity about what lay ahead and how this chaotic world might reshape his understanding of humanity forevermore.